everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Bright the cheeks and warm the heart, for tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Bide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Welcome to the show. My guest tonight is author David Barreto, and we're going to be talking about his latest book, Karma and Reincarnation in the Animal Kingdom. Now, David is a writer, a scripture researcher who has studied astrophysics at the Australian National University and religion at Harvard University. And he's very passionate about the esoteric and spiritual schools, particularly in the themes related to the animal kingdom. As someone who values all animals, he has spent years researching and developing a deep understanding of animal spirituality. Now, you guys all know in the chat room that you're off. You can question and comment us all during the show. That's fine. And if you're not in the chat room and you want to come and ask a question or so, come join us at paraxradionetwork.com. All right, David, welcome to the show and good morning where you are.
Good morning, Marla. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm from Beijing now, so... yeah, it's a bit of a time zone difference, but yeah, thank you.
I'm just wondering how many people that are listening in are in different time zones. I mean, all over the world. This is kind of neat in a sense.
True. Yes, definitely.
Well, between you, me, and Sarge, we're in 3 different ones just right here. So, that's pretty cool. All right. Well, there's so much in the book. And I really don't know where to start, but I guess the beginning would be a good place. Mm-hmm. So, as the back of the book says, you've done a deep investigation of animal karma and auras and energy fields, chakras, reincarnations of animal spirits, and more. So how about a little backstory on how this all began and, both the topic and the book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically, I've always been so skeptical, and I've always been a person who wants to know more, and I need more sources to, deliver what I want to know. So, back in the day, and when I mean back in the day, I mean 10 years ago, I was really intrigued about astrology, and does astrology work? Does that really work? And if it does, what is the power behind it? What is the energy? How can we explain? And then I started, studying cosmology, because I thought I could bridge then cosmology and then astrophysics and the whole astrology thing to, just help me. Obviously, I've been very interested into the esoteric and spiritual world, if you may, and metaphysics. So I was doing all of that for passion, and I really wanted to have a different explanation as opposed to a esoteric explanation. I had to, maybe investigate a little bit more. And then I wrote a book called The Supernatural Science, Theory and Magic on these topics: ghosts and astrology and witchcraft, spells, how do they work? But I've always been very into animals. I love all of the animals, and I respect them deeply, all of the species. So I've always loved them. But I could never see myself maybe, writing something about them. I thought that, it was just, for me, enough to, love them and have my pets with me and help animals here and there. But then I was like, hang on a minute. I know so much, and I mean, I know nothing, but obviously I was saying to myself, oh, I know so much about spirituality, as in our spirits, how we humans reincarnate, our auras and chakras and energy and all of these things. But I don't see animal information out there. The information about what happens to them after they die, or their chakras or their auras, it's always so minimal for us to know anything about animals on esoteric or spiritual, let's say, literature. And normally when we see some things about animals, it's just something to benefit the human, right? It's something to benefit our faith or religion or mysticism. It's like, oh, this animal provides these, or the animal is good luck, or my star sign is their animal, or my animal guardian. And you see a pattern of animals are not important. It's just they're just there to serve the human. And I was like, no, this is not the case. So let me just dive into this research about their chakras. I want to know details of their chakras and details of their auras and details of their reincarnation and details of everything that we normally study regarding humans. So I want to know exactly what happens to, what was that situation. So then I started obviously doing my own research in terms of literature, right? On the main religions and spiritual books, spiritualist books around, from all over the world, and obviously at the same time using my own intuition and my own sensitivity, just to guide myself and see, okay, what I saw or what I felt, what is that? Is it really that? So I could see that on a book, and that's why I came with the research, which is obviously tailored by me, a person, with not only some sort of sensitivity, but love for the topic, for animals. So the book that I talk about, and when I talk about all of those things, I'm talking about something from a perspective of animals are important. We are talking about animals and not talking about, them so they can serve us in a way or another. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you're talking about research, but I know the book was very research intensive. And when I flipped over to the back of the book, you have 15 pages of references, and it's in very small print. So, when you began your research, I mean, where do you start on something like that? One direction leads to another probably, but then, and it probably starts to snowball. But, you have to start somewhere, right?
Absolutely, Marla. Yeah, so many references. The thing is, as I said, I started with the questions, and I started, obviously, I knew something, right? I knew, something beyond, this animal means luck, or dreaming of that animal means something else. I knew a little bit more than that. So I started just writing because I want to, make sure that people would see animals differently in terms of, spirit. So then I started writing, and based on what I knew and what I could see and feel and experience, right, in my own private life and, with my own energy, if you may. But then I wanted those experiences or the knowledge I had to be kind of, I wouldn't say verified, but I wanted that to kind of match what other, literature have said about the topic. So then I would do a thorough research on that. And then I was like, oh, good. So I'll put my idea in here, but I'll also add someone else's reference to another part. So, if you want to see obviously more of that topic, this person, he'll be able to, give you what you need. So all of these references, they came along after what I had to put there. So it was me writing first, me getting the knowledge on paper, and then adding these references to make the paper really rich in terms of, look, it's not just an opinion. It's, maybe if all of these are opinions, they are also opinions from other people. And obviously the book has a lot of, history and anthropology and, science. So obviously when it comes to these topics, they have to be referenced, so that's why I cite them, because, we're talking about science and history. So, but my part on the book. So basically, when you don't see a reference, it's because it was mostly me. When you see a reference, it's because it was me, and I do a research, and I was like, okay, somebody else is saying that as well, or something I wanted to say. So I will reference them because it makes sense. It's fair.
Yeah, and I imagine there were topics that you had to leave out, either because there wasn't enough info, or just because if you covered all bases, you might have thought maybe you could only do that in an encyclopedia like length book or something, right?
Definitely, absolutely. There are just so many things that you can put, there on that book, especially because, again, I am not using this sort of lists of animals and how they can benefit us. I just want to emphasize that. I'm just trying to point out every aspect of spirituality, and obviously this subject is really broad, so I can't just summarize everything in one book, maybe in 2 or 3 or a whole encyclopedia. So talking about chakras and meridians and energy, and even their paranormal abilities, or it's just so much, because if you do the same research, or if you want to talk about those things regarding humans, you'd have to have an encyclopedia as well. Because then you can't just talk about one topic. You have to talk about all of the topics in one book. So I had to kind of like not summarize, but I had to kind of compile everything in that way, I guess.
Well, and if you do it about humans, we all have the same physiological things, but, you've got reptiles, you've got mammals, you've got, fish. The animal kingdom is very, very broad. So
That's so true, Marla. That's so true. That's exactly what you said. We are humans. So, the difference between my spiritual bodies and yours, or my experiences and yours, are like minor, right? But, we're talking about many other realms, within the animals, talking about, insects and elephants, dogs and, sea sponge, So obviously, the research was then, obviously very extensive on all of those. I tried, my best to do a fair share for all of them realms. Obviously, I couldn't, cover all of the animals. I added some examples specifically of a few animals from different realms. But yeah, so it was a bit challenging, because then you can't just say, one thing for all animals, you have to do the whole research again for that. Yeah. And when I mean research, I don't mean only like going and reading other people's books or papers, but also doing a research as in me going there and experiencing something, or meditating and, experiencing something or seeing something, or, so obviously it's a new chapter each time. So yeah,
it's absolutely amazing. Okay, so I'm going to jump to karma for a second, and like I warned you before, I'm going to just jump around here, but things popped into my mind as I was reading the book. So we as human beings generally know the difference between right and wrong, even if some think that they're right is somebody else's wrong. But do animals, I don't think I could be wrong, they don't know right from wrong. They don't go after people and, for revenge or stuff like that. I think that we're the savages rather than them. So let's talk about karma in the animals then.
That's great, Marla. Absolutely. We humans, we know the difference between good and bad. And let me just, give a background on this good and bad so we understand, fully what we're talking about. When we do, or when we are good, right, it means that we are being selfless, right? When we are bad, or when we do something so-called bad, we are being selfish. For example, if I steal something from you, or if I harm you in a way, right? I'm doing that because I want that sensation, or I want to get something from you, regardless of what you feel, regardless of your state. So I am being selfish. And that's what we do when we do harm, when we cause hurt deliberately. When we do anything bad, we are being selfish. It's like I matter and what I want and what I feel, regardless of what happens to you. So we do have this sense of right and wrong, or good and bad, because we have a little bit more intellect than most animals, all of the animals on this planet, really. So we have, as humans, instinct, but we also have intellect, right? So this intellect is playing a huge role in our lives. When we then see animals, right, no matter the realm, right, we're talking about dogs and cats and pigs and goats, but also, mice and lizards, whatever. We are talking about beings who are experiencing mostly instincts. So their instincts, like instinct in general, is an intelligent system, but it's not intellect, right? So they do not think. Their lines of thought are they think, but their lines of thought are quite short, right, in comparison to that of humans. So if we compare, for example, the lines of thought or the ideas of a human and a dog, you'd see that the dog's ideas, they're quite short. You can see that, coming out of the heads. Honestly, it's quite short. It's like little ropes of thought. Whereas humans, they would have that elongated, they keep a line of thought. So you see, because humans can decide on what's good or what is bad, and animals can't, humans bear karma, because karma is not a punishment. Karma is basically an experience you have to go through in order to fix an imbalance in your spirit, right? So you do something wrong. Let's just make it very simple. You do something wrong, and then to fix that in your spirit, you have to go through that so you can learn through experience, right? Sometimes you even happy undergoing karma, but the karma is there to help you evolve. So I just want to point out that the reason why we humans, right, we have karma, or we are reincarnating, without trying to talk about reincarnation now, is that we have instincts and we have intellect, and we are trying to get rid of our instincts, right? When we do, we then don't need to reincarnate on this planet anymore. So animals are in the same process, right? They are not experiencing karma. They are trying to polish their instincts to eventually get or develop intellect. And then the more their intellects grow, the more their instincts shrink. And that's the process from ants, from, tiny microscopic insects to gorillas, right? All of them, including us humans, we are trying to have more and more intellect and less instinct. Having more intellect doesn't mean, just being educated and articulate, or being able to read and, think, plans. When we mean intellect, we mean that we are not under the influence of instinct. We can think, we can have compassion. This is beyond instinct, compassion and love. This is beyond instinct. And I'll give you an example. For example, if you have a dog, right, or a cat, let's say you have a dog, and that dog loves you deeply. He loves you deeply. You can see that the dog loves a human, which is a species other than their own. So they are loving another species. They are relating to another species. Even if that dog has a sibling, another dog there, they normally like you more than their own sibling. See, they're relating, so they are going beyond their instincts. So you can see that their instincts are not playing a massive role in their lives. So when I call animals, for example, primitive or more complex, that's the difference. The more primitive, the more instinct. The less primitive, the less instincts. And just to summarize this instinct thing, for example, us humans, we still have some instincts playing, in our lives. For example, if you think about the basic instincts, right, which is obviously survival and procreation, eating, right? We still do have that, but because we have a lot of intellect, we don't dwell in that world of instincts. However, because we still have fragments of those instincts, we are adding our nefarious minds and nefarious ideas, and we are expanding those instincts in a wrong way. So, for example, we have the instincts of procreation, and then we add ideas, right? Really bad ideas to those instincts, and they become fantasies. They become fantasies that, almost culminate into crimes. Sometimes it does. So when we talk about sex crimes out there, it's the amalgamation of these two. It's the amalgamation of, their ideas into their instincts they had. So see, we are expanding their instincts. That was just a fragment. So that's what we humans are trying to do. Get rid of the instincts, and animals as well. So that's why they do not have karma, but they are accumulating what we call cause and effect, but not karma. Karma is a planned situation that you are going to go through. It's planned. It's molded so you can learn through that, right? The laws of cause and effect are quite similar, but when you do something that comes back to you in a normal motion, like when you throw a rock into a lake, you see the, ripples back. So that's just a natural thing. So that's what animals have, but they do not have to undergo a certain situation to learn that, that lion went after the gazelle. No, that won't happen. Does that make sense? Did I put it?
Yeah. I mean, animals usually aren't premeditated. They don't think about, well, next Tuesday I'm going to knock somebody off, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So what do you say to people who say that animals don't have souls?
Well, so the thing is, we need to understand, before they say that, right, or before talking about that, we need to understand that we humans, right, we are souls, right? We are spirits. So if they believe that they are spirits, right? So that those people saying, animals, they don't have souls, they have to investigate about, themselves. Are they souls? Are they spirits? If they are, great. Another thing that we have to say is we need to understand that we were humans, right? We were not created the way we are today, right? So whatever word you want to call, I normally use the word God, right? But so if God created us or created, the universe, probably, and when I mean probably, it's like, that's, for me, a fact. God did not create us, and, spiritually speaking, the way we are now. We were created in a primitive manner. We were simple. We were primitive. We were small. And then, over the course of millions of years, we are gathering complexity and information, and we are growing and developing, and it's pretty much similar to the evolution of species here on Earth, you know what I mean? So you have, these insects that grow and they become other animals, and they become others, and that's how they grow. So for a human being, who's into spirituality to say, oh, animals, they don't have a soul, or they are not spirits. Well, so neither are you, because you weren't created in this way. You were created simple, and and that goes for every angel. If you want to talk about angels or other ascended masters, they were created primitive and simple, right? And they are still evolving and growing, forever. And that's what's happening to us, and that's exactly what happens to animals. They are in their own realms. They are primitive, not only in terms of physiology, right, but spiritually. Some of them are more primitive than others, and some are more complex. So all of the animals, they are souls, and most of them, I'd say, not most, but they are spirits, because they are evolving. So we humans our future maybe is to become angels, right? If you want to call this word, we don't have to use that word, but just for reference, right?
Yeah.
So we are for the angels what the dogs are for humans, right? So before we just can become angels, if you know what I mean, dogs will become humans. So it's just that, which is a fact for me. It's just like that they are evolving. I think that this world and the whole universe, the whole physical universe, shows that we are evolving no matter where. So they are spirits just because of that. We were not created the way we are now. A dog was not created a dog as in like the first creation, the first time. No, it was probably a tiny particle, primitive, without much, that, was seeking individuality and then, growing afterwards. So, yeah.
Okay. The question came in about when we were talking about animals, and she says, are you saying that domestication is always expanding their instinct and possible evolution?
Well, when you have a pet, right? So when you are domesticating animals, and obviously when we mean domesticating animals, we don't mean enslaving, animals. We're talking about really having them as friends, right? Mm-hmm. What happens is that they are, as I said, interacting with a species other than their own. So they are going beyond their instincts. So then they are developing, obviously, in that interaction with you, they are developing love, and they're developing some sort of communication. They're trying to develop some communication. They miss you, Also, all of those emotions are getting them to feel and think differently outside the bubble of instincts. Not the bubble, but the nature of instincts. So the more you interact with the animal, or better, the more the animal interacts with you, the more the more distant they are from instincts. They're still ruled by instincts, but now instincts are not playing a massive role anymore. So I believe they would be willing to be closer to you than eating, sometimes. So see, it goes really beyond where else. Whereas if you go to like the jungle or, something like that, those animals, you can't interact with them. They will think like instinct first, right? So they will eat and they will do whatever they have to, regardless of you, because they're not domesticated. When I mean domesticated, also, I don't mean like, go in the wilderness and get any animal and interact with the animal. No, I'm talking about the pre-domesticated animals, right? We're talking about cats, dogs, goats, pigs, and elephants, and gorillas, and so many others like these, cows. Why? Because they are naturally domesticated, as in, they have experienced interaction with humans before, and I mean spiritually speaking. So I'm not talking about get an iguana, a lizard, and interact with the lizard. That won't happen now for that lizard, but for the mammals it will.
Yeah, there's so many different aspects there that it's kind of mind-boggling. I think we're going to take a quick break right now because anything I say we'll run into it too late. So everybody stay put, don't go away, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
Throughout time, events have occurred that have shaped human history. Spirit voices from the past have many stories to tell, and for the past several years, channelers Barry and Connie Strom have been conducting live channeling sessions and relaying those stories and messages from those on the other side. We invite you to tune in to Barry and Connie's new show, Channeling History, on the PowerX Radio Network, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, as they relay the messages of those voices from the past, the ones who have witnessed history firsthand, and those who have made history themselves.
Hey everyone, it's Marla. If you like tonight's episode of Stirring the Cauldron and the archive podcast as well, take a look at the show's YouTube channel and check out the dozens of shows that are there just waiting to be heard. New shows are added each week, and while you're there, why not subscribe? It's free. And if you click on that tiny little bell icon at the top of the page, you'll be notified when new shows are available. Just go to youtube.com and then type in Stirring the Cauldron Pair X, and the link will appear. Just like magic.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And my guest tonight is David Barreto, and we're talking about his new book, Karma and Reincarnation in the Animal Kingdom. You know, we could talk about evolution for like 2 hours, and so I'm going to jump to another subject right now, because there's so much in the book. Is the process of reincarnation the same for all species?
Marla, no, it's not at all. So let me just briefly talk about the reincarnation of humans, right? So we understand the concept. So basically, we reincarnate right here on planet Earth, you know, in this time span, because we need to learn how to do it differently, you know, how to become better spirits, you know. So here is a school for us. Eventually, when we no longer need the experiences offered by this planet, by this plane, we then don't have to reincarnate here anymore, right? So animals, they are going the same process, right? So they are learning, they are experiencing things. So, for example, when we are talking about animals who have interacted with humans, so I'm talking about cats, dogs, domesticated animals, we are talking about when they die, right? What happens is that they will be with you in your house for a while, right? Let's say that, you know, they died. They'll be with you for a while, and then they will be sent to these communities, to these colonies, right, in the astral realm, where they will prepare for another reincarnation. So they stay a little bit with you in the house, right, in the place at home, because they are now conditioned to, you know, the presence of humans, and, you know, you are their family, right? So they will be around you for a while, for a few weeks, and then they'll be back to the colony, the spiritual colony, and then they'll be back and forth like that. Eventually, they'll just be at the colony, and then they will be prepared for a new reincarnation. So that reincarnation is quite similar to that of humans. It's just that humans, we take more time here on Earth because we have so much emotional junk, really. We miss people, or we want revenge, or we don't accept that we died, or so many people are missing me, and so there's a bit of junk, or maybe the state of I wasn't good enough, or I could have done so much more. So for those animals, domesticated animals, complex animals, the reincarnation process is quite similar, right? So they'll be prepared to a reincarnation. And then, they will link their astral bodies to the sperm and the egg, right? So reincarnation actually for them, right, mammals, complex mammals, will happen this way. They will connect their astral body, now shrunk, to the egg and the sperm. So the reincarnation process is complete in that moment, right? It's not when they are born. It's right in the time of when they fertilize, the sperm fertilize the egg, even if it's in a lab, right? You're in a lab with a syringe and getting the sperm, that, they are connecting the astral body. So it's quite similar to that of humans, but obviously much faster, right? When it comes to other animals now that are not interacting with humans, so they are in the wilderness. So we are talking about, let's say, tigers in the wilderness, right? Or, we are mammals, right? We are talking about spirits who will die, and immediately after they will be guided, right? Obviously, we have other beings in the spiritual world helping or guiding, right? They're either humanoid, as in with a human figure, or not, and they will just divert them to reincarnation right after. So they will link their astral bodies immediately after. Why? Because they don't need to detach, they don't need to think, they haven't had any interaction with other species. So they are solely, right, entirely based on instinct. So it's much easier, right? It's more, it's quick because they are mostly dwelling on instincts. Now, when we have other animals, and they're not mammals, for example, we're talking about birds, and so birds, they reincarnate also like these, right? Much faster even, right? And their astral bodies connect right after to the eggs of other birds in the world. If there aren't enough birds, let's say that most birds die, and then how can we reincarnate all of them as soon as possible because we don't have enough eggs? Well, they will then wait, right? But the waiting is not, let's not try to picture that as an image of them waiting. It's just that the time difference is, time passes differently in the other planes. Then when we have other animals like amphibians and some sort of reptiles, they are not a spirit on their own. They are part of what we call group spirits, right? Obviously, I'm just trying to make the average here. Obviously there are some sort of difference, in between the species and that species, but I just want to make it really simple so we can understand quickly. So when we're talking about amphibians and reptiles, they are part of what we call a spirit group or a collective group. What does that mean? It means that they are probably not spirits, but they are part of a group of spirits. So they act as though all of them are one spirit. Let me give you an example. So if you have like, let's say, 80 frogs, right? You got 80 frogs. Each of those frogs, they are not a different spirit. They are part of one system, one spiritual system. So they are there gathering the information. They are experiencing their lives and everything. But when one of them dies, that one will not reincarnate. the energy that was permeating their bodies, right, let's say, goes back to the group, to be around the group, influencing the group, right? So that's how they reincarnate. And then, as you know, we have more little frogs being generated. That energy migrates, you know, like smoke, honestly, migrate to these new frogs, and that's how they reincarnate. So the reincarnation is not spirit by spirit, it's this group spirit, right? They're functioning as one group, but they are part of this system, right? And the same thing happens, but a lot simpler. The same thing happens for insects like ants. So if you have 50 ants and one of them dies, that one will not reincarnate. But the energy, let's call it energy, right? So their essence, right? That divine quality, energetic light, if you may, of them will go back to the group, right? Even if you separate the ants, like to different continents, they will go back to the nearby insects, to the nearby ants, right? So obviously the energy will seek the closest to that species, you know, and the closest to that level of development. So if one of the ants die, as I said, the energy goes back to the group, and that's how they go evolving and reincarnating, right? There's no memory back to the group, only the experiences are back to the group, right? So that energy eventually, let's call it energy, the energy, you know, surrounding and permeating those ants will eventually nourish the astral and etheric bodies of other more complex animals in the future. Also primitive animals, also animals who are part of a collective soul, but that's how they reincarnate. They are not one spirit. A leopard is a spirit, but an ant is not a spirit. They are part of a group. And, you know, so when I mean that they migrate, is that their energy, which, you know, permeates them and have all of the information gathered by their experience, is some sort of like complex energy, you know, but it's not a spirit. So then it just goes, you know, from beings to beings, you know, it's like passing on and on and on and on, eventually, like, you know, growing and evolving. And that's how it goes. And, you know, for every insect, it's like this. So that's the difference, really. So if we're talking about reincarnation, as we talk about reincarnation with humans, we're talking about mammals and some sort of aquatic animals and some sort of birds. Beyond that, you know, then we're talking about collective spirits, migrating their energy, if you may, migrating the whole consciousness as one to a new being. And one interesting thing is, whenever they migrate to another group, not in each life, but, you know, in each cycle, let's say, they migrate to a smaller number of beings. And those beings are more evolved than what they were before, if you know what I mean. So again, let's just speed it up. So if you have 50 ants, right, and they're there migrating to other ants and migrating, eventually when their energy is so complex that it's no longer fit for the bodies and experiences of ants, they will, let's say, just an example, they will migrate to beetles, right? So they will not migrate to 50 beetles. They might migrate to a group of 8 beetles, right? And then it goes like that. Eventually, those 8 beetles will become 2 complex spiders. And then eventually the 2 spiders will become something else. I'm not saying that those animals are the ones who reincarnate as the other one. I'm just giving you an example that the more complex you become, the smaller is your group spirit, right? To the point where you are one spirit.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I just want to say, because we're not going to get anywhere near to all the things that are in the book, but I want to say that you talk about karma and reincarnation, exploring the spiritual nature of animals, impact of human activities with animals, spiritual repercussions, animal in mysticism. I mean, it keeps going on and on and on. But there's one thing, and maybe that's going to take us till the end of the show. I don't know. But you have a chapter on planetary transformation through the ages. And in that chapter, there was a section called What Will Happen to Incompatible Spirits in the Age of Aquarius. That was interesting because you do go all through the ages, you write about in the book. But that was really kind of interesting to have the astronomy thing going as well. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Marla, that's good that you touched on that point. So basically, the world is going through a transition, right? It has always been, changing, and evolving. But let's just understand that now, right? And when I mean now, I mean since the 60s, the world has been changing dramatically and more rapidly, I'd say, right? This change is normal, right? So it's not new world order or it's no, it's just like a normal cycle that, happens in every planet, in the world, in the universe, in the physical universe or spiritual universe, right? So the spirits who are here now, they are to start thinking differently, right? And living their lives differently. And not only because they will be changing, but because some of the people and some of the beings who are here now on this planet, they will migrate to other planets where their evolution will continue there, right? And on the same pace, some spirits from another orb, another planet, as in another spiritual planet, right, another plane, they will come and start living in this planet here. So that's why the transition is going on, because the world is also evolving. It's not us spirits who evolve, right? The places, they evolve as well. So planet Earth is evolving, right? Mm-hmm. So again, all the spirits, more elevated spirits, will start coming and reincarnating here, and some of the very regrettable, let's say, spirits, bad spirits, right, or bad people, they will no longer be able to reincarnate in this planet here because the energy, the vibration will not be compatible with them anymore. So they will be, exiled or migrating to another planet where they will match the vibration. So if we understand what happened in the other astrological ages, right, in the past, we could see that we were experiencing, for example, the age of Lion, Leo, and the age of Taurus, and the age of Cancer, all of the other ages. We were experiencing those ages as in we were absorbing the bad and worse qualities of those constellations. Why? Because if we are bad. I don't like using this word so much, but I just want to make it simple. If we are bad spirits, we will assimilate the bad qualities of that constellation or all of that influence, right? If we are good spirits, we will only absorb the good and favorable influences of that constellation, right? So what happens is that, like in all of those astrological ages, including the age of Pisces, where we are now, we are still absorbing the bad qualities of these constellations because we are residing in this bad state. Our thoughts, our emotions are not very high. The world, look around you, open the news, see how greedy and selfish, most people are, and I put myself into this group. So obviously we are absorbing the bad qualities of Pisces. However, there is a speedy change happening now in the world, which I call a planetary transition, right? Where, as I said, many spirits will no longer be able to reincarnate here, and some other more elevated spirits will start coming here. Because of this change, and this will culminate in the around the year 2150 is when we officially enter the age of Aquarius, right? Officially, as in on paper, right? Then we can see that we will be absorbing the best qualities of Aquarius and not the worst qualities like we've been doing for the past 12,000 years, right? Mm-hmm. So we will be seeing in this planet here then the good qualities of Aquarius. So we are seeing communication, and Aquarius is a sign, is a constellation that detests the status quo and detests what is unfair, and Aquarius wants everyone to have everything and to be able to do everything, and freedom. Aquarius is just this rebel. They don't like what is old, what is from the past. They want change and rights. And if we put this onto the world, we see that we'll start seeing this in the animal kingdom, right? Where the animals, they will be obviously seen in a different scope. They will not be seen as goods as they were in the age of Taurus, and they will not be seen as machines as they were in the age of Aries, or and slaves as they are seen in the age of Pisces. They will be seen as equal, because Aquarius is all about equality, right? Aquarius universalizes everything, including the rights. So we will see that not only for animals, but for people as well. And that's why I believe that veganism, if you want to call this, veganism, I think veganism is going to play a big role in the age of Aquarius. I think it has started now, because we started feeling the first emanations of the age of Aquarius around the 60s. So obviously, we might be able to start seeing more and more of these, right? It's not about veganism as a label, but it's more as in, okay, we are seeing animals as equals, as in we're not supposed to kill them. We're not supposed to profit from, let's just make rights for everybody. And that's what I believe. The age of Aquarius will be something great. And again, although on paper it's going to start on around 2150, obviously we're going to start feeling more and more Aquarius and less Pisces, right, as the years go by. So yeah, we'll be able to see more and more change.
That's going to be interesting. I mean, well, I was going to say we're not going to be around here to see it, but, we may be reincarnated back then, and, we'll be right in the middle of it. It's very possible. You also talk about psychic abilities in the animal kingdom, and you talk about you going back in history, and you talk about how cultures have worshipped animals. The book, we're just talking about 2 or 3 things, but the book is full of things. So I just want to get that across. So what is the main message that you want to impart on people that are listening in?
Yeah, so, the first message is that, animals, they deserve, life. They deserve to be alive. They deserve to be there. And not only that, but they are so important for us in terms of, for us to understand who we are, because again, as I said, animals, they are evolving to eventually become, humans, not necessarily on this planet or humans exactly like us, but, they are going towards that, so if we understand with compassion what they are going through, we can understand where we humans are to go. So the message is that there's just so much about animals out there, and I think understanding them makes, in spiritual terms, makes everything much clearer for us, that we should not enslave animals or profit from their suffering, and we should always care about animals. And I just don't want to talk about we should be so kind, because this is just a law. If you're not kind now, you'll have to experience another life where you are kinder, until we finally learn and don't have to reincarnate here. So, seeing animals as, equals in terms of, deserving to live and not, deserving to be slaves, is something great, or minor spirits, I call them primitive, just like to mention about instinct and intellect, but they're not primitive at all. They're pretty much what we humans were in the past. So so the message is animals are worth of all of this attention and love, and I think that's the message.
And understanding too, very important.
1000%, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Where can people find you? What's your website, or where do you want people to go looking for you?
Sure, yeah. So my website is davidbarreto.net. And, on my website, you can find ways to get my books, my latest book, which is Karma and Reincarnation in the Animal Kingdom, and another book that I wrote also, which is The Supernatural Science, Theory and Magic, where I talk about, ghosts and witchcraft spells and oracles and, a lot of things like that as well, under the lenses of science. Also, I have a YouTube channel called Animal Spirituality. So maybe just type that, David Barreto, Animal Spirituality. But yeah, I think everything. I've got an Instagram account, davidbarreto.uk. But yeah, mostly on my website, davidbarreto.net. And if you want to get my books, also, they are like in your best retailers, right? Barnes & Noble, Amazon. And I also have them available as audiobook and Kindle.
Wow. Did you do the audiobook yourself?
No, I didn't. Somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, an amazing guy from America.
Okay. Yeah, well, maybe down the line, come back. Maybe we'll talk about the other book as well. But
that'll be amazing. Yeah.
Everybody that I know that's listening in, we're all about animals. And, one really, really fast answer. Somebody, I forgot to ask, somebody said, some people say that there's a debate whether or not animals can reincarnate into humans or vice versa? Well, got a quick answer for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, being really brief, right? Animals can reincarnate as humans, but humans cannot in any way, shape, or form reincarnate as animals on this planet, right? So humans will not retrocess, they will not go back in time, right? So humans will not become a dog or reincarnate as a pig or something else. An animal can reincarnate as a human, but normally what happens is that they will, let's say you have a dog and the dog is really smart and really passionate, like you see, that dog is beyond his species. Normally what happens is that they will be, sent, right? Or they will go to another planet. And when I mean another planet, I don't mean physical planets, right? The astral plane of another planet. And there they will reincarnate in that dimension, if you may, as a more advanced animal or as a primitive human. And when I mean primitive human is like not necessarily so similar to us, but, primitive. When they evolve they can then come back to this planet and reincarnate as a human here, right? So it happens. But, for example, if you lost your pet 10 years ago, they will probably not be reincarnating within, 40 or 50 years. So you might not be able to see them as a human, right? You might be able to see them as another animal here. Or if you die, after they die, and you can both go to this other planet or another layer of the astral world, then you can see them. But for them to reincarnate as a human, which happens often, it takes a while because they need to prepare their astral body somewhere else and then here. They will not be a dog and then reincarnate right after as a human here. Okay.
All right. We do got to run, but thanks. I'm glad I asked that and got it in. Otherwise, I'd get kicked in the butt. Anyway, I want to thank you for taking the time to come in and join us. I want to thank all the listeners, as always. And until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
This has been another edition of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Be sure to tune in next week at the same time for another great guest and more fun. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2009.
You have been listening to the Para X Radio Network,